Hello everybody, Jake your resident content cowboy here, Yeehaw, and it's Mondays. On Mondays, we do tier lists.
What? He's a good kisser.
He's your cousin.
Yeah, but he's my first cousin.
Right.
So you have your cousins, and then you have your first cousins, and then you have your second cousins.
No, honey.
That's not right, is it?
Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here with you doing this Pokemon Unite competitive tier list. So I've watched a ton of competitive games. Obviously, I was casting some of them over the weekend, and I have some thoughts on where all of these Pokemon are sitting in the meta right now. I'll also do a solo kind of duo queue tier list as the week goes on here, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out after seeing so much competitive Unite. I'll talk about where we are seeing these Pokemon, where you're seeing them succeed, and even if you're not playing the game competitively, I think it's going to give you a lot of insight as to what's happening inside the game. So come along with me, friends. Let's do this here. Our tiers for today, we have the God tier. As always, one Pokemon will be in our God tier. We're not freaking worse around here. We have our S tier, the staple Pokemon tier this week. We have our A tier, all top picks tier. We have our B tier. Still got the B tier. We've got the C tier, the could these Pokemon be any more C tier, and the Decidueye Memorial tier. Obviously, for the longest time, if you're just new to the game, Decidueye was one of the worst Pokemon in the game, in my opinion, for a very long time. It is no longer in that spot, but still, currently that tier is a memorial to Decidueye. Where would I like to start here today? Lots of great Pokemon to choose from. Let's start with, you know what? Let's start with all-rounders. I don't feel like I start with all-rounders too often. The first one on our list here is Charizard. I'm just setting it on the list, and I'm going to talk through it a little bit here. I think Charizard sits somewhere comfortably between A and B. I don't think it's a staple Pokemon, and I also don't think it's amazing. It might be a very solid B tier choice. I didn't see a lot of teams have a ton of success with Charizard in the Aeos Cup here. They were just running into some teams that I think Charizard didn't perform particularly well against. Charizard's a very good Pokemon, and if you're playing Charizard solo, it's amazing. Charizard might be A. It's kind of getting close there. Right now, I think I'm actually going to leave it B tier here. I think it's solid, but you need to give it that central area. And when you have to give Charizard that central area, that means you're kind of taking away experience from possible other choices that I think might have a little more value right now. Great Pokemon, but I don't know if it performs particularly well against some of the teams we're seeing out there here. Next all-rounder, Garchomp. I think Garchomp is C, maybe even D. I really don't think Garchomp is very good competitively. I've seen some teams attempt to play Garchomp, and just slightly lowering the music here in case it's too loud. I'm seeing some teams that have tried to use Garchomp competitively. I just don't think it works. I don't think it works that well in big fights. It just gets shut down so easily. Garchomp has a hard time, I feel like, securing you know what? I'm going bold here. I really don't think it's good competitively. I know some teams have had some success with it. I just don't. I would never want to use this Pokemon on my team. That's just my thought here from seeing all these games. I really would never want this Pokemon. It does shred objectives, but you know, a lot of things that are more useful are things that have big bursts of damage to secure things. Last hitting is what matters in Pokemon Unite, and I just think Garchomp doesn't do that well. It doesn't stick to targets well. Solo, this Pokemon is in a very different place, and I'm not saying Garchomp is terrible. I'm just saying on a competitive team, I don't know. I would be happy to be proven wrong here about Garchomp, but I just don't think it's super viable. I don't like this Pokemon right now competitively. Lucario, I think Lucario is still a staple Pokemon. Now, this is actually getting closer to an A tier all the time, and then it shoots back up into this staple Pokemon S tier. It's one of the best Pokemon in the game. Always has been, maybe always will be. Extreme Speed's really good. If you've seen the Aeos Cup, Power Up Punch, was an extremely popular pick on a couple of builds that did very well in the tournaments. It's just hard to overstate how good Lucario is. I always think it's going to sort of fall out of favor, and a lot of teams are dropping it. It doesn't mean that this Pokemon is the only choice right now, the only choice I'm going to put up into the God tier, but I do think this Pokemon is extremely good. It's so good. Lucario is so good. Both forms of Lucario are so good. It's such a great Pokemon. Next all-rounder, Machamp. Definite A tier. All tops pick tier for me. I think Machamp's doing great in this game right now. It's almost up there with Lucario. Not quite, but very, very close. In fact, it really gives Lucario a run for its money with a few of its setups here. We saw some teams use it very well over the weekend. I really love that we're seeing more diversity inside of the game right now. And something that my casting partner Jeff Hoagland said over the weekend that I just think is really true is, I'm paraphrasing here, by the way, I'm not getting it right, but it's just that we're seeing a lot of build diversity, and it's showing that the game, there are a lot of strategies inside of it that I think are still being developed, still being found. Every time there's a balance patch, something new is pulled out. You're going to see some Pokemon on this list that you might not expect because of that. And Machamp is really rising in the ranks. It's just Lucario still found a way to be more impressive, I think. But I think Machamp is doing really, really well right now. Specifically because it has really great last hitting early with its Karate Chop, and then later in the game, its Unite move is amazing. It's a super solid Pokemon right now. Machamp's doing great. Little Tony the Tiger there for you. Zarina. I think Zarina's low B, high C. I might even put it C. I saw some teams playing Zarina, but I honestly don't think it's the best choice. There are some cool things about Zarina. I might keep it B tier. So Zarina, I mean, if I'm looking at Lucario, Machamp, Zarina, it goes Lucario, Machamp, Zarina. That's what's happening in my eyes. Even though that top path is getting way more competitive. I think Zarina is good. Some teams won with it. It's solid. In a way, I think it's kind of more solid than Charizard in some ways, but they definitely fill a different role on the team. You're not going to be seeing Charizard alone in that top path. I mean, maybe you could, and some teams are playing 2-1-2, so who knows? I think Serena's okay. I think it sits in this B tier right here. Solid, but I just have a hard time seeing how you wouldn't get more out of having either Machamp or Lucario on your team. The nice thing about Zarina is I'm actually seeing both builds being used with it, so I am seeing some triple axle play, and I'm also seeing Stomp. I personally think Stomp is, I don't know, it just suits my playstyle more. I like the huge amounts of burst damage, and I really value a ton of burst damage out of a character. I think it's super important, but being able to shred things is also pretty valuable if you have your team around you here. Our next all-rounder is Dragonite. Dragonite's a weird one. You're not seeing it much. I actually don't think it's that bad, but it's sort of bad in a fight. So here's what happens with Dragonite that's tough. It secures objectives really well with Hyper Beam, and that's pretty important. Although now some things are kind of securing objectives faster than Dragonite can sort of react to it. Like Lucario's power-up punch or Blastoise's Unite move, it feels like you can just set up a situation where Dragonite might not even be able to throw their Hyper Beam the way they would want to. I think because of what I'm seeing happen inside the game right now, I'm going to have to move Dragonite down to a C tier. It's extremely specific. I think it works, but it's extremely specific, and it doesn't fight as well as many other Pokemon. So after that Hyper Beam is done, you're not that useful. And then there's the Outrage build, which I have not seen competitively at all. I would be curious to see it, but I just I don't know if we're going to see that anytime soon. A team trying to run that Outrage build. I just don't see a lot of value from that. And then finally, Azumarill. Azumarill I actually think is C. Maybe it's D. It's pretty low, but a few teams have tried it in that top path, and it's not chaotically bad, right? I think everyone thought this Pokemon was kind of chaotically bad at one point. I think it's fine. I think you're maybe showing off a little if you're playing Azumarill. There are better choices. I see a lot of people using that Whirlpool build, which is the build that I also love. Again, solo, this is a little different, and there are a few nice things about Azumarill. You're always going to have a Unite move. Basically, at every big engagement, you've definitely got a Unite move with this Pokemon, which is really cool, and I think that's what gives it some value. But in general, you kind of, when you're thinking about these Pokemon, you always have to think, well, where is it going? Like, where is the placement of it, right, on the map? Is it top path maybe by itself? Is it in a 2-1-2? So is there another Pokemon with it in the top path? Is it going in the central area? And when we're talking about Azumarill, we're probably going in that top path. And I do think it gets outclassed by all three of our other top pathers here, Lucario, Machamp, and Zarina. I think all of them are better choices. This Pokemon probably needs a slight tweak, and then, you know, it will start to see some more play. Oh, another Pokemon. I forgot. How can I forget about you, Mr. Sword? Aegislash. Actually, I think this might be an A-tier pick right now. So the interesting thing with Aegislash is it's a little hard to play in the top path. Not impossible, but it does struggle against a Lucario or a Machamp or something like that. You kind of have to play this in the central area, but I've actually seen teams get really decent value out of Sword. One of the problems that you always have when you're a Pokemon that's probably in that central area is your role is so heavily contested. There's so many Pokemon you could put there. Cinder and Greninja, Talonflame, Charizard, Dragonite, like many Pokemon we've already talked about. Duraludon could go there. There are tons of Pokemon that could head towards that central area. And because of that, you have to make sure you're getting a lot of value out of the Pokemon you choose for that central area. That being said, I think Aegislash actually provides a ton of value. One thing that Aegislash does is it shreds tanky Pokemon. So it's boosted attack, doing damage based on max health, and the fact that Sacred Sword is lowering defenses and such. It's just a really good Pokemon for shredding through super tanky builds, and there are a lot of teams playing these ultra tanky team comps right now. I think Aegislash is actually in a really good spot in the game, but of course in a heavily contested role. Heavily contested. I think I got all the all-rounders. They just keep adding all-rounders to the game. I can barely keep up with it. All right. Let's do, who do we want to do next? Let's do Speedsters. So we did some of our all-rounders, or all of our all-rounders. Let's talk about Speedsters. We've only got 4 of them. Absol. I think Absol is a sneaky B. I think it's a sneaky B tier Pokemon. Pretty good. You actually play it in path. You don't really play it in the central area. You don't need to. In either top or bottom path, it gets plenty of experience. It's a bully early. I saw a few teams running this, and I actually think Absol is right on the cusp of being a really popular choice in some situations. Its problem is the problem that it's always had, which is it doesn't fare particularly well late into the match. It just feels like it doesn't have enough value late. You probably would have had someone else, like let's say you were running Absol in sort of a 2-1-2, 2 Pokemon on the top, and you had a choice of, instead of having Absol, you had a choice of having a Pokemon we've already talked about, Machamp, up there. Machamp is just so much stronger late game that it's kind of hard to give that spot to Absol. I'm not saying these two are necessarily the two that are going back and forth with it, but you know, it's just something to think about here. I think Absol's actually good, and a few teams did run it, and it worked out pretty well. So I think Absol is kind of a solid B tier choice here. The next Speedster is Gengar. No one had the guts to play Gengar, really. This Pokemon, to me, it's either low B or high C. I thought we were going to see more Gengar. I really did. I think there's potential here, and here is the potential. The chain KOs that you can get with this Pokemon are really incredible. It can delete an enemy carry Pokemon like that with Shadow Ball Dream Eater. It's just gone. The Pokemon doesn't exist anymore. And the fact that Buddy Barrier has gotten so much worse means that you can actually do something in some of these bigger fights. Before, what would happen is maybe you'd hit a Shadow Ball, or you'd nail your Dream Eater on someone. They'd just get Buddy Barriered, and you wouldn't be able to delete them. Gengar has to be able to delete someone in a combo, basically. If it can't delete you in its combo, it's not super viable. So I think Gengar is low B. maybe high C. Again, no one really wanted to play it. No one wanted to bring it out. I thought we might see some Gengar because teams had been experimenting with it, but it just wasn't, it wasn't what any of these teams decided to go with. And I think, you know, that's a testament to the fact that it's still close, but not quite there. I think this Pokemon might be better than some are giving it credit for, but no one wanted to take the leap and really put this Pokemon on display. I'm going to keep it low B. It might be low B. I'm going to keep it low B. Next Speedster, Talonflame. We didn't see much Talonflame. I still think it's an A-tier Pokemon. There are reasons that Talonflame might not be particularly good. One is that a lot of the teams were playing these really tanky setups. So they had Blissies and Blastoise, and, you know, Pokemon like that were just really, really tanky and tough to get through. And one of the things with Talonflame is you want to either fly or Brave Bird onto, you know, that squishy Pokemon here. I think Talon suffered a little bit on the fact that it's going to land and not necessarily secure the KO. So because of that, Talon, it's also sort of in a weird Gengar place, but I just think I think it plays a lot better than Gengar. Me personally, it's also a Pokemon that I personally love. I think it's a really solid choice, but, you know, to be fair, we did not see much Talon at all either. I think against the team comp that ended up winning kind of the whole thing in North America and EU, I think there actually could be a little room for Talon against that team composition, but we didn't see it. I still think it's a really solid Pokemon. I think it's really solid. I'm probably being a little too biased here with Talon. I think it's pretty solid here. We got through 3 of our Speedsters, which means we have our last one left. Controversially, I think Zeraora is the worst Speedster in the game. Solo, duo, I think this Pokemon has a lot of value. Competitively, I think this Pokemon has almost 0 value. Here's the problem, and I talk about this every time I bring up Zeraora. It just levels way too late. It's way too late. It gets its Unite move at 10. Its upgraded moves at 12 and 14. It's not powerful enough to deserve that long leveling period in my opinion, and because of that you're kind of behind for a while. If you don't get central area, it's forever until you get your big move, either discharge or wild charge. Both of them have some ups and downs. I don't know. I really like Zeraora. I played a ton of it once that Cowboy Hollowware came out. Of course I did. I played a ton of it once the Cowboy Hollowware came out, but at the, you know, I just can't see it fitting into any composition that well. There are just so many other Pokemon I think you'd want to run. I like you, Zeraora, but I think you need a little love right now, buddy. I think you need some TLC. What do we want to go with next here? We got attackers, we got defenders, supporters. Let's do defenders. Okay. Blastoise, first one on our list here. I think Blastoise went way up to an S tier choice inside this tournament. Blastoise has been looking pretty good for a while. Its Unite move has amazing secure. It does so much damage. It does so much damage to not only an objective, but all these enemies around. It gives Blastoise a massive shield. Its Rapid Spin Water Spout is just such a frustrating thing for enemies clumped up to deal with, for, you know, squishier Pokemon like a Decidueye or something that's not wanting to be engaged on. I think Blastoise is in one of the best places it's been in the game ever, except for when it came out and it was kind of just insanely broken. But I think Blastoise actually showed this weekend that it is a top tier pick. It was picked in almost every single team comp. And it's not a surprise. I don't remember who said this to me first. I think it might have been Chris Heroes. He just said, you know, the thing about Blastoise that's giving it so much value, we were looking at a draft tournament, but the thing that's giving it so much value is you can kind of play it anywhere. People play it in the bottom, top, central area. This Pokemon really can go anywhere and still get good value. And because of that, I think it's one of the big rock stars of this patch right now. One of the best Pokemon in the game for sure. That's solo, that's competitive. I think it's one of the best. Crustle, unfortunately, I think hangs out down here with Garchomp and Zera. You know, it getting its critical hits back, I actually think there's way more viability in this Pokemon right now. I would like to see some teams bring it out, but you have a really awkward decision to make, and that's where do you put this guy? Where do you put it? I don't know. Bottom? You put it in a split? You put it in a 2-1-2 and top? Maybe? I don't know. I just don't see a lot of value for Crustle right now, unfortunately. I think a lot of the changes recently made Crustle worse, and although the critical hits coming back, it is something. There is something there. I think maybe there's some more value to be mined out of this one, but I don't know. I don't see it right now. Defenders, Greedent. Greedent, I think, is an S tier Pokemon. I think it's hard for it not to be. I've been saying this for a long time. Even every time they nerf it, I still think this is one of the best Pokemon in the game. It's also very versatile, and it sets up plays. You know, there are certain Pokemon that you feel like you are going to encounter, and they're going to be difficult when you do encounter them. So a Pokemon that springs to mind is Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is just in that bottom path. It's throwing out so much damage all the time. It's always throwing ice. It's stunning you. It's got that Aurora Veil. It's Alolan Ninetales. You know what's going to happen when you see it. But what Greedent does is Greedent makes you play Greedent's game. Okay? And it's a twisted, sick game that a madman would create. Greedent just allows you to put pressure all over the map. It works in the top path. That's probably where it excels, but it also works in a 2-1-2 because it can just break off and start taking enemy wild Pokemon. When this Pokemon is played well, I think it's one of the most devastating Pokemon in the game. The compositions with Greedent didn't make it all the way to the finals, but I do think Greedent is one of the best Pokemon in the game still. It's a dynamic changer. It changes the dynamic of a match, and you can't ask for too much more when you're looking for a Pokemon on your team. The second your enemies see Greedent, they have to play your game, and I think that's big. Mamoswine, I think, is a C tier. Here's what I think about Mamoswine. I think it's decent early, decent mid, and decent late. And because of all of that, it just never fully fits into a competitive team comp. One of my favorite Pokemon to play right now. When I'm playing duos, especially duos or trios, and you know, one of my allies is on a carry Pokemon, I love playing a Pokemon like Mamoswine. Oh my gosh, it's so fun, so good. But when you get into a competitive setting, you have to decide what Pokemon you're losing for this. And there are other defenders that I think, especially in that bottom path, that are just, they have so much more value. And not only other defenders, but when you're looking at a Pokemon like Mamoswine, you also have to compare it to Blissey, Wigglytuff, Mr. Mime in a sense. So there are supporters that kind of play the same role of essentially a tank. So Pokemon Unite has the defender classification, but that's pretty varied. I mean, Blastoise and Greedent are very different from Crustle, which is very different from Slowbro. But when you think about a tank Pokemon, that's kind of what you're getting out of Mamoswine, and I just think it's outclassed by a few of the other tanks here. Although it is a solid Pokemon, it just doesn't fit into a team composition super well. Looking at our next defender here, Slowbro. I think Slowbro is... I think it might be an S tier, A tier, S tier or A tier. I think A tier. I think A tier because... Boy, it's close. It's really close to an S tier pick for me. It's one of my favorite defenders. I think it gets so much work done, and I think it's amazing at setting up moments where you can delete enemy carry Pokemon near the end of the match. So in some of the later fights, Slowbro's Unite move is a game changer. You can... If one Pokemon on the enemy team is down, especially their highest damage dealer, and you have not lost a Pokemon on your team, it could be time to snowball the enemy team and just start wiping them all out. And Slowbro sets up situations like that. Not only that, it never dies. It knocks up the entire enemy team with Surf. Surf Plus knocks up people multiple times. Slowbro's sick. I mean, it's just such a good Pokemon. I think A tier is a solid place to leave Slowbro. I really, really like Slowbro right now. Snorlax is a weird one. Snorlax is almost D. It's just that the game kept evolving around Snorlax, and Snorlax just stopped bringing as much value as it used to in this game. I love block. I think Heavy Slam is good. You know, for Snorlax, it feels like for it to be more viable, it needs to be even tankier. It just needs to be able to soak up even more damage, because it feels like, well, why would I take it over Slowbro, who can attack at range, is tankier, soaks up more damage, recovers more health outside of its Unite, obviously, that Snorlax has. I don't know. I just feel like what happened with Snorlax is at one point it was the best, and then the game just kept progressing, and this Pokemon just kept getting left in the dust. And then you think, well, okay, maybe I'm not going to play Heavy Slam block. Maybe I'm going to play Flail block. Fine, but is that what you need in this defender? Is that it's doing flail damage? Is that the best use of this slot? I just don't think so. So I think this Pokemon, it almost moves into the D tier for me, but maybe I think that's probably too cruel, but it almost moves D tier for me. Our next defender here, Trevenant. Mr. Tree, I think, is coming all the way up to A right now. Not quite an S tier choice. We saw a few teams running Trevenant in some really exciting ways. We actually saw it in a solo top role from Game & Gladiators. Lutano, normally a Lucario player, I'm sure you've seen that, was playing Trevenant in the top path, which was really cool to see. Some teams actually putting it into the bottom path or splitting it up in a 2-1-2. Trevenant, I think, provides a ton of value. It's just, I think it's a little outclassed by Slowbro, honestly, but I think they're both incredible choices for that really tanky spot. Talk about a Pokemon never being able to be KO'd. My goodness, it's such a hard Pokemon to take down. Trevenant is in a really cool space in the game right now. For the first time ever, really, Trevenant is in a cool place in the game, and I really love that. Let's talk about let's do attackers. Attackers here. Cinderace, I think, is still very good. I'm gonna say it's B though. It's high B. I'm not really ordering these, but just for the sake of it, it's high B. And here's why I think it's actually high B. It's weird because when I did this competitive tier list maybe a couple weeks ago with members of Team Blossom, they were telling me I think that Cinderace was B tier, and I was surprised to hear that. And after seeing everything play out over the weekend, I think it's kind of true. It's good. It's good still. It still does a lot of damage. Its secure is pretty poor. It doesn't secure objectives and wild Pokemon that well. But it's good. It's good in fights. It's good in fights. But right now it feels like the game is heavily focused on getting those big secures. And if a team knows that you can't secure well, they are going to take objectives from you. We saw that in the EU and NA finals. The teams that won those were really good at taking objectives, and if they recognized that you weren't as good as they were at getting these massive last hits, they were just going to take them from you right in front of you. So I think Cinderace doesn't fit well into a meta where teams are trying to do that. Let's see, next attacker on our list here, Cramorant. I think Cramorant is still it's actually, I think it's out of the D tier. I think it's out of the D tier. I think it might be high C. I really do. It could be moving its way into the B tier. It still needs a little love in my opinion, but it's in a better spot than it has been in a really long time. You just have a hard time putting it in the attacker role if you're doing the 1-1-3 because you're comparing it to Ninetales and Pikachu, which are both very good. I mean, Venusaur, I think just it has more late game value. Decidueye, there's an argument to be made there that there's more value there. So while I like a little bit of the love they've given to Cram, I think competitively it's in a crowded category, and there are a lot of Pokemon that you might rather have around rather than Cramorant here. Gardevoir is also C tier. Yeah. Solo duo trio, I think this Pokemon's amazing. I think competitively it just needs so much experience, and you're taking it from you're just competing with so many people for the job, and I don't think it competes as well. I like it as a Pokemon. I love Future Sight. I don't know. I don't think it does it. I really don't think it's an optimal choice right now. I'd rather have Decidueye. I definitely would. I think Decidueye is better. I think its Secure is better. I think its Unite move might not be better in some ways, but Gardevoir's Unite move is really, it's all or nothing. So if you really nail a Gardevoir Unite move, you could have just won the game from it. That's true. But also, I would say most of the time, it's fine. I think it's a fine Unite move. Again, this is purely from a competitive standpoint, putting a team together. I just don't think it's a top pick. I really don't. Greninja, on the other hand, I do think is a top pick. I actually think Greninja it's either A or S. I think I'm going to put it S right now. I think Greninja's in the best spot it's ever been in the game. It's really good. And what's really good about it is its Unite move got that nice little buff. Its Double Team also got a buff. I'm not sure about Smokescreen. I think more people are going to be running Smokescreen on Greninja. But its Surf is just so valuable. The ability to take objectives with Greninja and take KOs with Greninja, I think it's extremely valuable. It's one of the top Pokemon you're seeing in that central area. It's not the only Pokemon that was a bit of a star this weekend, but Greninja was a real star. And I think when you're looking at that sort of ranged attacker role that it feels like Greninja sort of falls into, I think it's probably the best of the bunch right now. I do. I think Greninja's doing really well. Alolan Ninetales, I think, not S, but extremely good. I think Alolan Ninetales is A. Not a ton of love this weekend. We saw a few teams running it. I think it's still a really, really amazing choice in that bottom path here. Tons of damage. Not only damage, but you're constantly stunning by enemies with your freeze. You're stunning them with your dazzling gleam. I think Alolan Ninetales is really solid, and it actually has pretty good burst damage with its Unite move. The problem, I think, with Alolan Ninetales, well, the problem with a lot of these Pokemon is you're going to have to decide how they're going to do into a team composition that is really all about ripping objectives down and securing them very, very fast, because those are the team comps that are winning right now. And Alolan Ninetales, I'm not sure how well it's going to play into that. I still think it's a really solid choice, but it's a different team choice. You know, you're doing something different with that. Pikachu, I also think still hangs out in the A tier. I think it's a very good Pokemon. You know, especially when you're looking for secures. Electro Ball is amazing. Thunder still has a lot of potential. Thunderbolt. So I think Pikachu still very, very good. Pikachu and Alolan Ninetales, you could probably make the argument that they're teetering kind of into the B tier a little bit. They're fighting in a crowded role, but I think both Alolan Ninetales and Pikachu still have a lot of viability. We saw teams play both of these Pokemon with a lot of success here. Let's see, Venusaur also A tier. Venusaur, if Venusaur and the Protect Venusaur comp didn't get shut down by some of the other comps that are out there, I think Venusaur makes it all the way to the S tier, maybe even the God tier. Watching PogChamp play Venusaur and that Protect the President comp, it was a really difficult team to take down. They played extremely well, but in the end, there's just a more valuable strategy out there, and because of that, I don't think it makes it into the staple Pokemon or God tier list right now. However, Venusaur kind of coming back, because now that the buddy barriers aren't keeping everyone alive, if you have a Pokemon that can kind of keep itself alive for a very long time, that has a lot of value. Decidueye I think is maybe falling to B tier as well, around with Cinderace right here. I think it has value, but it's very, very specific. What Decidueye did extremely well in March was counter the menace that was Duraludon. And Duraludon is less of a menace right now, and now you're dealing with just kind of an entirely different beast right here. I actually wonder how Decidueye would have played into some of these, you know, more for lack of a better term, flip teams. I don't think flip is really the right term for it, because that's not what we were watching. We were kind of watching coordinated secures of objectives. Flip is just the, you know, when a ton of damage is being put on something and you hope you get the last hit on it. This was really more a ton of damage is being put on something and there's a very specific strategy behind how they're going to secure it. I wonder how Decidueye could play into that, because it has amazing secure with Spirit Shackle. It goes through any number of enemies on the enemy team and can grab objectives like that. But right now, I think it's kind of solidly hanging out in this B tier right here. Feeling pretty good, but it needs a pretty specific team to make it really sing. All right. Hi, Sylveon. What do I do with this Pokemon? If you haven't watched the Aeos Cup, I mean, Sylveon was a bit of a freaking star. It really was. This is premature. I'm just gonna do it. It was a star, man. It was a staple Pokemon this series. So many top teams were running Sylveon, and in a way you might not expect, where they were kind of, from what I understand, all following the lead of Random Gaming, the EU champions, where they would give Sylveon some experience in that central area early, and then Sylveon would be Sylveon already evolved, running into the top path, and then it almost felt like it was playing like a Greedent. It was running all over the map, just hyper voicing in everyone's face. Again, this is probably too generous, but it was a star. It was a freaking star this weekend, and it was so cool seeing Sylveon in that spot. I really loved it. Duraludon, I saw almost no play. Almost no play. I think people are slightly sleeping on this Pokemon, to be fair, but it saw almost no play this weekend. I'm gonna still say it's B. I just think other things kind of pushed it out a little bit, and it got a few nerfs, and people went, yeah, it's not as good as it was before. And look, it's not as good as it was before, which was the only Pokemon that teams were choosing for a little while. It was just kind of too crazy. But I still think there's actually some pretty good value to Duraludon, and I would like to see what teams end up doing with it once the dust is sort of settled, once we're kind of done thinking maybe Duraludon's time is over, maybe we try to figure out ways to react to this new meta. I think Duraludon's still kind of solid, but to be fair, teams are not picking it up. So if someone wanted to say, hey Jake, I actually think that's more of a C tier, I couldn't really argue with you too hard. Blissey's a freaking hero right now. On to our supporters. Blissey, total S tier right now. I mean, almost every team is running a Blissey in some fashion, whether it's Egg Bomb Blissey, which a lot of teams are playing Egg Bomb Blissey, or it's Helping Hand. Safeguard is definitely the move for this. It gives a shield. It stops you from being shut down with, crowd control effects, or CC that you might call it, as suppressing effects, being stunned, slowed, knocked up, things like that. Blissey is just an absolute rock star right now of a Pokemon. It's doing great. Eldegoss, I think is C. That is probably a pretty hot take, but the issue is there just isn't anywhere you want to run it outside of the Protect the President comp, and even then, I don't even know if you need it right now. It really feels like this Pokemon got its wings clipped a bit. It's just it's not seeing much play, and I don't know. I don't know when we're going to see Eldegoss again. I think some teams could try to bring it out. It just doesn't feel like it has a ton of value right now. I think Blissey has way more value, and it's because Eldegoss's shields just keeps getting nerfed. Eldegoss has been nerfed many, many times, and now there's just something so valuable about being unstoppable, which is, something that Blissey is giving you. I don't know if it's technically unstoppable, but the ability from Safeguard is just better than Eldegoss's shields, Mime, I think Mime is sneakily B. I think there's actually something there right now, and we saw Nemesis try to pull this out. Guard Swap Plus is really wild, and if you can get to level 13, there's something there. I'll say this, Mime changes its leveling to a level 12 move upgrade, and all of a sudden I think this could be a wildly popular Pokemon. I really do. I think there's something to Mime, and I don't think we found out what it is yet. I love Nemesis trying to make it work there in the tournament, but unfortunately not able to get it done there. They were going up against two champion teams, and who both played extremely well. Wiggly's a weird one. Where'd you go? What happened? Wiggly's gone. Wiggly is where'd it go? I think this Pokemon is just another one that kind of feels forgotten, mainly because of Blissey. I really do think it's because of Blissey and kind of Slowbro. So Wiggly is just not there right now. Part of it is this: if you use Sing, but Blissey safeguards an ally, that means Blissey and an ally aren't going to sleep. So Blissey right there is a huge counter to Wiggly. There are other Pokemon that have unstoppable features. You can't put a rapid spinning Blastoise to sleep. I don't think you can put a Covet Greedent to sleep, but I think it slows it down. So my point is, there are just a lot of situations where unfortunately Wiggly's not finding the value it did before. I wonder if some teams are going to start pulling it out again. I really have to put it here in this B tier because, guys, nobody played this Pokemon. Sad, but true. Okay, Hoopa. Finally, Hoopa is S tier Pokemon for sure. It's an absolute staple Pokemon. I don't think a single competitive team did not use Hoopa. I don't think a single competitive team did not use Hoopa. I think I got all the double negatives in there, right? I don't think that none of the competitive teams did not end up using Hoopa in a way that was not. So Hoopa is just so amazing, unbelievable, unique, game-changing, game-breaking, game-altering, gaming, gaming gladiators. I don't know what this is. Hoopa is a game-changing Pokemon. It is a God tier Pokemon. Hoopa is my God tier Pokemon right now. You can't have a competitive team without Hoopa. I dare you to try. I dare you to try. There are a few teams that I think one team maybe tried it and it was a really cool team composition, but the ability to bring your team to two specific massive fights, Zapdos and second Dreadnought, and also the ability to become unbound and destroy everything. Why does it do both? Why does it? Why? Okay, hold on. Why does this Pokemon have the greatest Unite move in the game utility-wise, and then also you become an absolute monster Colossus from StarCraft 2? Like, what is happening? Why does this happen with this Pokemon? It's a complete God tier Pokemon right now, and I think Hoopa is just insane in this game right now. All right, there we go. There is your tier list, and now we of course have to have a little fun, don't we? Now we're gonna have to put something in the God tier that people would kind of believe, right? You can't. Okay, we'll put Trevenant in the God tier. They'll believe that. There we go. Okay. And that's why I'm saying the ghosts are here to stay. Trevenant and Decidueye, without question, God tier Pokemon right now. Some surprising changes, obviously, was seeing Sylveon in so many of those grand finals. And then, of course, Azumarill rocketing up the charts. I really didn't expect to see it. But, of course, left out in the cold, our buddy Alolan Ninetales, kind of moving all the way to the bottom. Other Pokemon that are just not impressive right now. Greedent, Lucario, Aegislash, even Blastoise didn't get to see as much play, I think, as a lot of people would expect. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you very much. More cool stuff coming soon. Bye.